welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I'd do like a fun quick little project. So I have done the Banana Hammock by Sincerely Jen Patterns. It uses binding, but it's probably a pretty good intro into binding if you've never done it before. So I have used waterproof canvas. It's only 3 pieces for the outside and 3 pieces for the lining, not including the tab and the handle, but like for the main body. Takes 1 zip. And comes together fairly quickly. So if you're looking for a good Christmas gift, I would probably recommend one of these. So if you'd like to see how it's made, please stay tuned. Alright guys, so I've got my tub here of all the stuff. There's actually not many pieces to this. So I'm using my waterproof canvas as my binding. So I did iron it. So for those who don't know, you can iron my waterproof canvas. You can't iron all of them, but this one you can. So I have ironed it into a double fold pattern because that will be easiest. You will need 1 zipper and a zipper pull. So I'm using my silver teeth because I thought that would be really fun with a silver zipper. So I'm just going to install that now so that I don't lose it. Could have done it before the video, but you know, I'm never that organized. So I'm going to just kind of put it roughly in the middle. So the other pieces I've got 2 lining pieces, 2 exterior. So because I'm using waterproof canvas, there's no interfacing on any of the lining pieces. The exterior, this is a sateen from Spotlight. So it's the stretch cotton. So first off, I put a layer of Hefty, which is Vilene 1050F. And then I've also got foam on the back, and this is going to give it its stability. So that's the side panels. Because I want to use or sell this as a makeup bag, I'm putting black on the bottom so that you won't see it when it gets dirty. So this is just a random piece of black fabric I had. It's like a drill but thinner. So it's got the drill kind of twill lines in it, but it's a lot thinner. I think it was, I don't remember what it was, but it's just a scrap that I had. So that again has Vilene 1050F, which is the heavy non-woven interfacing. And then I've put foam as well, and that's going to make it nice and sturdy. I had to bring the pattern piece because I need to know where to put my strap. So this I have double folded, but I've also put a strip of non-woven heavy interfacing, so the hefty interfacing in there as well, just to give the handle a little bit more stability. And this is going to be my little zipper tab on the end. So I've double folded that as well so that there are no raw edges. So I am using a white fabric today, thread, just so it can look fun. So I'm going to take my strap and I'm going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch each side of the strap. Down one side. I'm just going to twist and go back up the other side. Then I'm going to do the same to my tab. Just so that it matches. You could just do the one side and close it, but I want to do both sides so that everything kind of looks more uniform. And I've got my stitch length slightly longer so that it looks more decorative since I'm using a contrasting thread color, because I thought that would look fun. Alright, so I'm going to take a main panel piece and a lining and my zipper. Actually, you could probably take the zipper off until the end, now that I think about it, or at least till later. So I'm going to line up the zipper on the edge of the straight edge of the lining, and then make a zipper sandwich. So I'm going to put this one right sides down. I'm going to go back to a joining stitch length. Line it all up. We're going to stitch. We're going to back stitch. That's going to lock it in. Then I'm just going to run this along the edge, like so. And then when I get to the other end, I'm also going to backstitch just to lock it in. So now I'm going to pull the zipper away from both fabric pieces and fold these down. Now if you struggle with thickness in your machine, you just make your foam piece about a 1/2 inch less so that it'll be less bulky when we go and top stitch here. This machine will do it fine though, so I'm going to leave it. So I'm going to go back up to my 4 stitch length to make it decorative, and I'm just going to pull this so that it's flat and even, and then top stitch 1/8 of an inch along here as well. And this is going to hold it all in place for me. So go slow and steady to make sure it's not buckling underneath. And instead of back stitching at this edge, I am now going to stitch all the way around and baste these together. Like that, and treat it as one piece. So now we have one side. We're going to repeat this with the other side. Now, if you're new to sewing, use some Wonder Clips to clip this on. It will help it to maintain its evenness if you are struggling at all. I always clip the two ends and then come back through the center and just add some to hold it in place. And I will always clip 2 pieces and then add in the next one. So you want to line this edge up with this edge so that everything is even and it's not going to be crooked later. So you don't have to pin it. Usually I won't use clips at all, but I'm just showing you if you are new, because this is a fairly easy pattern and a good intro into doing binding if you are scared or don't like it. So we're going to stitch. We're going to back stitch. I'm going to bring Scully over because I like to clean up my clips as I go. We're going to stitch along, back stitch, and then again back up to our decorative stitch length, and I'm going to pull this back with the lining. Whoops, there you go, I just completely pulled it apart. That actually doesn't matter, I can show you how to fix that. So we want to line it up on the edge. Actually, if you want to, you don't have to do this, but if you want to, you can actually pull this down and clip it in place. Since we're going to top stitch around it in a minute anyway, to baste it, you can just pre-baste it. If you're struggling to get this to sit flat, this is a good alternative. As you can see, I don't have to do this, but I just thought I'll show you an alternate way. So if you were struggling with pulling that foam because you didn't trim the foam down, then this is a good way to fix that problem. So again, we're just going to add clips. So now this will hold that in place and it should be easier to top stitch now. So we're going to start here. We're going to stitch and back stitch to lock in those stitches. I'm going to go along, needle down, and then let's just baste the whole edge. And the reason we baste it is because it'll be easier later when we're doing the binding to just have one piece instead of 2. It's half as much work later. Also, make sure you don't sew through your zipper teeth yet, because it's not joined and we don't have our zipper on. Throw the threads in the bin. Right, so now we're going to take our zipper pull and I'm going to feed one half in and then the other half in. You want to get them so that the teeth fall in evenly, and we're going to pull it all the way off. Now I know that might seem counterintuitive, but now it's one solid piece again. So I can stop the zipper in the center, which is what we want to do. So I'm going to crack this end again, and then push both halves in. Sometimes you have to crack it a little bit more. Just try not to do like too much. Get it all lined up and pull. So I'm going to stop it in the center like this. That way it won't get in the way when I'm doing anything else. I need to take my zipper tab and I'm going to put it on this end so that when I'm closing it, I can hold the tab. So now I'm just going to stitch over the teeth and kind of baste this right over the teeth. Now if you're using metal zip, obviously don't sew through the teeth. You may want to use, you can do a couple of things. So you could just manually crank in between the metal teeth, or you could have added a little zipper tab on the end so that it won't be in the seam allowance. I'm just kind of holding that in place like so. Trim off those tails. So now I have a little tab. Let's move on to our other pieces. So we need the template because it's got the handle placement lines. So I'm going to take my handle and just kind of fold it back. So if I fold it at the lines, like so, if you pre-fold it, then you can just open it out like this, fold it back, and that is where we're putting our handle. So I'm going to line it up there and put a clip, and then we're going to bring this up so it's going to sit up like this to make a decent handle. And then we're going to clip it there as well. You might want to use 2 clips for this. I always like to use 2 clips. It's less likely to move around. So we're done with our pattern piece now. I'm going to take my lining and put it wrong sides together. Now, because this is double-sided foam, you could iron this on. I probably could have done that later, or before I started rolling the camera. But clipping it will work just as well, and you can always iron it at the end. So that is your choice. Then we're going to come back here and do the sides. It's not sitting terribly straight right now, but give it a second. Obviously, ironing is potentially quicker than having to do all the pinning or clipping. But nothing's plugged in and heated up, so we're just going to continue on. So now that I've got all of that clipped together, I'm just going to baste around the edge. So you don't want to be too far from the edge because we do want to hide these stitches with our binding. I'm going to lift this up so that I don't hit, whoops, there goes my badge. So I'm on, doesn't actually matter what stitch length you're on. You notice when I go around corners, I use my hand to kind of twist it. I have found that gets a much smoother result. Okay, trim off that tail. So now you should have 2 pieces left. So with right sides together, and I'm going to put the handle at the opposite end of the tab. And at the end center, we're going to clip that to the zipper. And I'm going to do the gusset side up. So I'm going to make the clips face this way. Then I'm going to bend this over and do the opposite end. Because that is now half for each side. And I've still got a tail. Make sure you get rid of your tails. It will make it easier later down the track. So another easy way to do this is I'm going to fold it in half and find the center of here. And this one, which I have missed some of the tacking down. So I'm just going to come back and do it again. Because I promise it is easier if it's one piece. Now I don't have to fight 2 bits of fabric. Trim off all the tails. Right, so fold this one in half as well. Find the center. Center of everything is always the easiest way to do it. So then we're going to do it to this one as well. Doesn't matter that it's attached to the bag. Fold it over, center, center. So now those clips match up with these clips, like this. You just squish it down together because you have worked out the fancy maths by just folding it in half. And then I'm just going to work my way along the flat edge. You want to use a fair amount of clips because we've got foam and interfacing and fabric. It is quite firm, but that's what we want. We want it to be firm. And it just kind of falls into place, if you can see that. Quite nicely, I might add. So we're just going to continue clipping. So that's one side done. Doesn't matter how many clips you use, whatever you feel comfortable with. Because I don't want this to move, I am using a lot. Yeah, and I'm making all of my clips face this side. This would be a great additive to Christmas baskets too, since we're nearly at the time when we need to start thinking about Christmas gifts, especially if you love doing handmade gifts. So this would make a great pencil case, or toiletry bag, or makeup bag, or, you know, a case to keep all your cords in. It could go a lot of different ways. But it would be like you just pick the person's favorite style of fabric and they would find a use for it. It's a very handy size. So we're now clipped. I'm going to start on this straight edge because straight edges are always easier. So I'm going to push this down flat so that I can get it under the machine. And I'm going to take off a clip so that it'll fit. And I'm only going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance just to hold it all in place. The reason I'm not doing a 1/2 inch is because I don't want to see these stitches when I attach the rest of it. Now your corners might be a bit tricky, but slow and steady will win that race. You don't want to go too fast because it is very bendy. So while this project's pretty quick, it's a little bit fiddly because of the shape that it is. But don't let that deter you and not make it. You just got to keep squishing it down and out of the way. But because of all this pressure, that's why I use so many clips. Right, now we're on the next flat edge, which means we're halfway. Alright, and then get back to the start and back stitch. So now it's together. I'm just going to trim down any excess I've got at the curves, like that. Mainly because I want it to sit gloriously flat and even. So just trim off those little bits. It's always the curves that sometimes move a little bit. But don't let that faze you. It will still work out. So it's almost done. We just need to cover the raw edge we've just created, which is where this comes in. So I'm going to start again on a flat bit. Now because I've double folded this, I literally just have to slot it over the edge like that and clip it down. Easy peasy. And because we did a slightly less seam allowance, it also covers all of the stitches that we just did. You just want to push it all the way down so that that fold is right on the edge center of the seam. And that way it's covering both halves equally. I'm going to use a lot of clips for this because I do not want it to shift under any circumstance. This would make like a great weekend travel kit. It's a good size. It's not too big, but it's big enough. We're about halfway. I have a sneaking suspicion I do not have enough binding here. But I guess we're about to find out. Oh look, I missed by a little bit, but that's okay. I'll just make another piece and put it over the top. So we just want to keep clipping around. This was just a random piece I had, so I will have to make another piece. But that's alright, it's not like it's difficult. So this polyester, whatever this stuff's called, it doesn't go through a binding, folding, like little tool. So I actually had to iron it in half and then iron both sides to the center. So it did take a little bit longer than if I was to use cotton, but this is waterproof, so it'll work out great for a toiletry case. There'll be no rot and mold, and you can just wipe it clean. Clip. So I did nearly make it. I only need a little piece. So I'm going to go and make another piece that's about this long so that I can cover all of those edges, and then I'll be right back to show you how to attach it. I have my next piece right here. So what I'm going to do first is fold under the raw edge. So you can even open it out all the way like this and then fold under the raw edge. But the idea is that there's nothing to fray. So then I can just come to where I left off, and I just want to overlap it probably about 1/4 inch and clip it down. And then we can just continue around. If you've got a binding tool, you can definitely use that as well. That'd be quite handy here. So I'm nearly back to the start. So here's the start here. So I'm going to cut just past so that I can fold under this raw edge as well. So this method also works for cotton. I'm just going to tuck it under like that, and then lay it down and continue clipping. I'm going to remove the first clip so that I can add this in like that. So now there's no raw edges anywhere. So again, we're going to do exactly what we did before and then just stitch around. But again, you want the gusset side facing up. You can start wherever you like. You don't have to start anywhere in particular. And I'm going to stitch 1/8 inch from the edge of the binding. You just want to make sure that the rest of the bag stays out of your way as you go. Clean up your clips as you go as well. It's nice to have a clean space. It is easier to concentrate with less mess around. A little bit of chaos never hurt anyone, but too much mess is very distracting. Especially if you're new to binding. It's not meant to be stressful, it's meant to be fun. So this, again, is why I don't recommend using the metal zips, because I just ran over the zipper tape. So you'd have to pay a lot more attention to there if that's what you wanted to do. actually don't even own metal zipper tape. It's not that I hate it, it's just easier to work with nylon because you can stitch over it. Needle down. I'm also going to trim these tails because they're starting to bug me. And that way they won't get caught up in anything anywhere else. So with your binding, you do want to try and pick a colour that matches it so that it's less obvious with your stitching. Because again, if you're new to binding, you might have to go back and go over some bits that you've missed. It does happen when you first start binding. It's not a big deal, but that's why you use a matching thread so that you won't see it, that you have to go back. So we're nearly there. Twist around and then back stitch. Trim off those pesky tails and then flip it to the other side. See, even I've missed a bit. So see just here, I missed by 4 stitches. So now I will stitch it from this side so I can see and just push the fabric in and stitch that area. So we're going to stitch forward and back to lock in your stitches and then try and push the fabric so it'll line up where the other stitches are. And then just back stitch when you've sealed it shut. And again, you can barely notice that I've done that because the thread is almost the same colour. So now you can just put your finger where your zip is and crack it open. And then we're just going to turn the bag through. I'm using a fist kind of to push it out so that I don't hurt my fingers. Like that. You're just going to push all of your corners out so that it's going to sit nicely. Same with the other end. Like so, other side. So I'm just pushing on that seam. And then you grab your tab and zip it shut. And we're all done. I would give that a final iron. But yeah, one case. It's got a handle. It possibly needs to be kind of rolled on that seam and then give it a good old Tory squish, which is basically violently shaking it back and forth to get a crease there. If you're on a domestic and you think that that will be too difficult, just take the foam out of the seam allowance. So just cut it that much smaller all the way around. But we're all done. Perfect Christmas gift or stuffing. Stocking stuffer, not stuffing stocker. Alright guys, I will see you all next week. Bye!